Welcome to the Daily Agenda. Tonight's podcast will be about the so-called steamroller effect, the saving of the nation by Rupert Lowe, according to the Lotus Eaters. Apparently, a storm is coming. Really? I think there's been a couple of storms today. There's been quite a few storms over the last few days, weather-wise that is, but no storm caused by Rupert Lowe, and nor will there ever be a storm caused by Rupert Lowe. But before we move on to the low question, which is a very low question indeed, let's talk about an idea we have to trap the centre-right. So, in terms of the new merchandise that we've released, and more of it is coming on stream very shortly in the next few days, the idea we had was to send some of our activists to these protests, some of the smaller protests where it's more effective, wearing the Make England Germanic Again t-shirts, specifically the red version, which stands out from the crowd perfectly and records very well on camera. So the purpose of doing it is to encourage or trap the centre-right into saying, what on earth is that all about? And to record their obnoxious anti-Germanic, anti-white, anti-English reaction and then plaster it all over social media. Okay? So my advice is this. I need volunteers and I need credible people. I don't need people who want to play at it. I need credible volunteers. So I need credible volunteers who are willing to do this and for the right reasons to get the red t-shirt design. You can find the link on my YouTube channel, and obviously make sure you get the right size. Get it a little baggier than usual, I would say, and then go to one of these migrant hotel protests and get the centre-right to react to it. And then, of course, as I said, we can record them and embarrass them with it, and we can really throw up the issue of they don't understand ethnicity. And then that brings us now onto the issue of Rupert Lowe and a storm rising. Well, there's no forecast for any more storms today, and Rupert Lowe certainly won't be causing any more storms. In fact, he's never caused a storm, let alone a storm rising. But as the fairy tale thinking goes, apparently the Lotus Eaters, most of them, now that they've decided Tommy Robinson is just a milquetoast civnat, actually he's a centre-left civnat. If he's even a civnat, to say the truth. He's a junkie, first and foremost. We saw that, didn't we, on Saturday? Yet more mountains of cocaine consumed at the Mongfest. So there you go. There will be no revolution. I've said this before. As for civil war, they couldn't fight their way out of a wet paper bag, including individually and en masse. And so forget all of that nonsense. So how is Rupert Lowe going to create a storm in the context of an immigration policy? His immigration policy is absolutely feeble, and Restore Britain is not a political party, it's a campaign group. And its campaign is for net negative migration. Now, this is an area where younger so-called nationalists struggle completely. They think net negative means a stop to all immigration. It doesn't mean anything of the sort. Absolutely not. It's just a play on the words of net zero immigration by fake Farage and deep fake Reform UK. It doesn't actually mean stopping immigration at all. In truth, what it means is the mean average across the board, if you look at the three now divided factions of the centre-right, being Reform UK, Restore Britain and Advance UK, all crappy insurance company names. Although the Rupert Lowe one sounds probably a little bit more like, some shady little pyramid scheme health club, but with tones of insurance smacked into it. So the real issue is it's 600,000. 600,000 across the entire board. And that's not, I'm not talking about the figure Farage mentioned recently in his latest scam about, we're going to deport 600,000. Millions need to be deported. Millions need to be deported, not 600,000, and absolutely no more imported at the same time. And this is where we come to it. The mean average across the board with the three centre-right Zio factions, because that's what they are, they're Zio factions, they're all controlled opposition. And they're all Tories as well. Rupert Lowe, Tory. Nigel Farage, Tory. Ben Habib, Tory. Tommy Robinson is alter ego, just junkie scumbag. Quite frankly, EDL junkie scumbag. And so he doesn't really count. He's a support prop. And Ben Habib just used him as a parasitic mechanism to siphon up some support from the deluded monks who follow him. So anyway, back onto the real issue of 600,000. So 600,000 does what exactly? And at the same time, they say that they're going to stop illegal immigration. Well, how are they going to do that? Because none of them has a determination, a commitment to leave the 1951 UN Refugee Convention and to just pull out of the EU, the UN completely. We don't need the UN. It's a communist organisation, highly destructive, toxic communist organisation. So, again, that's what your lawyers will use in the courts to oppose any deportations. They will quote, oh, well, look, under the 1951 UN Refugee Convention, which Britain is a signatory to, these people can't be deported, and that's exactly what will happen. And one bent judge after the other, these activist judges, will simply rule against the government. It doesn't matter whether fake Farage is running the show, Rupert Lowe, or Ben Habib with his little cocaine factory under Tommy. And it's just nonsense, all of it, absolute nonsense. It's a sad delusion, really, in all honesty, I think. But that's the centre-right for you, full stop. They've always been of that mindset because essentially they're all Tories. And the Tories are globalists and they're all committed to mass immigration. They believe Britain cannot exist without immigration. The economy will collapse without immigration, despite the fact that the figures, the statistics actually prove that immigrants cost the British economy 14% more a year than they actually generate for the economy. So how could the economy ever really collapse? It's just absolute nonsense. And so what does Rupert Lowe actually want to do? So he wants to stop illegal immigration and send back the illegals. Okay, well, what about the balkanisation of our cities? They don't intend to attempt to reverse any of that. None of them. Nigel Farage is exactly the same, so is Ben Habib. They're all bought into the diversity delusion, which is cultural Marxism, and also mass immigration. They intend to continue with it. In fact, all three of those factions, I'm beginning to think that they have, an almost homoerotic obsession with Indian men. Elon Musk certainly does, doesn't he? And so does Donald Trump, it would seem. Apparently he's here in the UK to save us. I can't see any sign of Donald Trump saving anyone here in the UK. He can't even save the United States, let alone us. And his record on deportations is actually much fewer than what President Obama did, a mixed-race tool of Zog. So, and that's exactly what you'll get from Farage. What you're seeing with Donald Trump is what you will get from fake Farage. Huge disappointment, but even 2 to 3 years into the huge disappointment, the centre-right lemmings will still be saying, oh, it's the best thing for Britain, at least they've done something, and yet, to be honest with you, the Uniparty gangsters will have done more, in truth. And let's wait to see what the latest immigration figures are, showing Labour's record on immigration first, before we make any real serious commentary about Starmer, Labour and immigration. So, in terms of Rupert Lowe, there is not going to be any change. There is no storm coming. I'll tell you what is coming, a storm of delusion, which is what the centre-right is completely. And as for the Zoomers who consider themselves to be nationalists, I believe some of them are, but the vast majority of them are not even homelanders in the context of the Homeland Party. They're hinterlanders. So the hinterland is a place between the land and the sea. The sea is the centre-right and the land is nationalism. So they're basically, they suffer from salt dick syndrome. So they've got one leg in the ocean and one leg on the land, and their penis trails in the water, hence salt dick. So that's what it is. That's what the hinterlander is. They're hinterlanders because they stand right on the edge of the hinterland with the cusp of the centre-right. They don't really know what they are. They don't know whether to jump into the centre-right sea or to stay on land, firmly entrenched on land, which is nationalism. And so they're no use to us. They're absolutely useless, quite frankly. And the older nationalists don't fall for any of this centre-right nonsense at all. We saw through it years ago. We've never fallen for this centre-right drivel. And we know exactly what Rupert Lowe and his scam is. It's just another variation on the theme, i.e. fake Farage says this, Rupert says that, and bungling Ben says another thing. But ultimately, if you look at them, the mean average across the board is they all want to allow in 600,000 immigrants a year, roughly speaking, which is probably a net reduction of about 400,000 if you can believe anything these people say. But of course the centre-right lemmings, the Mongs, will, particularly when they're coked up and hyped up on that flag shagging festival like we saw on Saturday, absolutely, all you're seeing there is mass formation hypnosis, or maybe mass formation psychosis. I would actually say it probably is mass formation psychosis, because I actually think there's been a dramatic change in the country since Elon descended from the big screen and told them to fight. Fight what? What are they fighting? They don't even know what they're fighting. They can't even define English ethnicity. And anyone who does define English ethnicity, particularly in the context of what I said earlier about the Make England Germanic Again t-shirts, they attack them as racist and the will far white in it Prafnakap. So this is what we're dealing with. And the Lotus Eaters now, at one time they were pumping and spinning fake Farage, then they turned against him. Before that it was UKIP. And then obviously they switched over to, oh well, maybe Ben Habib's all right, and Tommy's a great guy. Now they're turning that one down as well, apart from Carl Benjamin, who continues to slurp up the goyslop all the time, because he's exactly the same, isn't he? Goyslop. Just a little bit more educated than Tommy, but just as bad in terms of spouting goyslop. And then of course you have them now attached to Rupert Lowe. He's the saviour. He's the saviour. So they've been through 4 saviours already, and this is the 4th saviour, apparently. So Benjamin's now outnumbered on his own show by the the lemmings who think Rupert Lowe's going to save them. Well, I've just detailed all of the facts. Rupert Lowe is not going to save anything. No one on the centre-right is going to say a thing. They can't define English or British ethnicity. They can't define Irish, Welsh or Scottish ethnicity. And anyone who does is a racist ethno-nationalist, as far as they're concerned. And they need to use people like Glenn Saffer and assorted trolls to incite violence against us, so which they're not capable of carrying out. More to the point, sounds good, doesn't it, on paper? But in truth, when you actually come to do the business, particularly against people like us, you know, the veterans of the BNP, I mean, it's a different matter entirely, you know. Oh, as I said, you know, we're used to dealing with red action and class war, not gobby little centre-right clown wankers. So this is the point that I'm making. The centre-right, whilst they're now actively portraying themselves under victimhood status because of the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and just look how they've swallowed that. They've taken that slop, hook, line and sinker, everything the FBI says about, you know, Tyler Robinson, they seem to just swallow it. And yet, to be honest with you, the majority of the evidence that has been presented to is highly suspect. Particularly the text messaging thread that we saw yesterday and today. It's just absolute garbage. It looks like something concocted on ChatGPT. And this is the point that I'm making with the centre-right. They're not particularly bright. They're not very well some of them are very well educated, but they're not particularly bright with it in terms of organic intelligence. And in terms of saving the nation on the immigration issue, they can never do it. It's absolutely impossible. They all believe that anyone can become English. Absolutely anyone can become English, Irish, Scottish or Welsh, despite the fact that is physically and genetically impossible. Occasionally you'll get some of them on the Lotus Eaters saying, oh yeah, well that is true, but then they claim Rupert Lowe is going to save the country with a policy which is exactly the same as Nigel Farage's by a different name, and Ben Habib is exactly the same. He uses slightly different wording. They tend to minimally paraphrase one another's policies, but ultimately it's all the same thing. So, you know, if you want to save the nation, if anyone really wants to save the nation, and they want real, actual, genuine remigration, it's nationalism or nothing, because the centre-right has nothing to offer whatsoever. Thank you for tuning into the Daily Agenda. And remember what I said about the T-shirt stunt against the centre-right. I want volunteers as soon as possible, when you're ready. Good night.